I believe that the Bible is saying that the so-called firmament is actually made of ice. Ice, dome, baby. And just for fun, we're going to read from the complete Jewish Bible. God said, "Let there be a dome in the middle of the water. Let it divide the water from the water." God made the dome and divided the water under the dome from the water above the dome. All right, so what happened here? Did God make some kind of solid barrier? No, he simply divided water. So God just divided the water and made a dome. So there's water under the dome and there's water above the dome. And what did God call this rakia, this dome? So God called the dome sky. God called the rakia shamayim. That's what it says. I'm just reading what it says. All right, so the rakia is sky. And here we have birds flying above the earth in the open rakia of the shamayim. You're going to see lots of different translations for this word rakia, and even some different translations for shamayim. Sometimes it's heaven, sometimes it's sky, but it really means sky, all that stuff above us. But the whole point of this is to create an area, like a terrarium. And there's no mention of a manufacture of some kind of physical barrier. There's a mention of the expanse between the floor and the ceiling, which are made of water. So how can that be? How can there be water above us? It doesn't make sense. Well, next time it rains, observe carefully where is the water coming from. It happened to me the other day, and I realized, hey, the water is coming from above me. There is water above us. It falls down on us. We call it rain. But is there something else going on here? Is there water above the dome? Is this model basically more or less correct? Water is below, water is above. What's in between it? One thing, it's called the rakia, which is called sky right here. And this is not the only Bible translation that uses the word sky. Here's the Net Bible. They say the rakia is the expanse. It's an enclosed expanse, an enclosed area, like the room I'm sitting in right now. God called the expanse sky. So why not call this one sky also? It's the same Hebrew word. And this is where I started thinking about this when I was reading Revelation 4:6. John has a heavenly vision, and before the throne there was something like a sea of glass, like crystal. Well, the throne is in heaven, and so it sounds like under the throne there's a sea of glass like crystal. What does this word mean, crystal? Well, let's check out the Greek here. Krystallo is actually the Greek word. Oddly enough, the word krystallo means ice. That's actually what it means. Now, maybe sometimes it could refer to a rock crystal or some kind of stone or gem or something like that. But really, what I want to say today, I seriously think this means ice. And this word is used only once more in the New Testament, Revelation 22. He showed me a river of the water of life, bright as crystal, bright as krystallon, bright as ice. However, this word appears about 9 times in the Septuagint. Numbers 11:7. Now the manna was like coriander seed, and its appearance like that of bdellium. Well, what is that? Nobody knows what that is. Its appearance was like that of ice. It actually makes more sense. Psalm 147. Who cast forth his ice? Look at that. It's translated as ice right there. See? You didn't believe me. Now you've taken notice. And a lot of English translations will use the word ice. You're going to see different words, and we see these are all the same Greek word, but look at how many different English words. Clouds, there's ice a few more times, crystal. So there's like 4 different English words used in only 9 different passages for the same exact Greek word. What's going on here? This is the kind of stuff that drives me a little bit crazy, and it takes a lot of work to discover these connections. And I'm giving it to you for free. And all I get in return are insults. So, Psalm 147, who casts forth his ice as fragments? Who can stand before his cold? It almost sounds like icy fragments falling down. Psalm 148, fire and hail, snow and clouds. Why is it suddenly clouds here, but it's ice right here? What's happening? Why couldn't that be ice? Job, which grow dark because of ice, and upon which the snow hides itself. Job 38, from whose womb has come the ice and the frost of heaven, who has given it birth. So here's krystallos, translated as ice in the Wisdom of Solomon. And here's another one. When the cold north wind bloweth, and the water is congealed into ice, Isaiah, and your gates of crystal. Now this might actually be crystal because they're talking about stones, rubies, your gates of crystal. But here, Ezekiel 1:22, we're going to take a deeper look at this as well because we need to unpack this one a little bit. Now over the heads of the living creatures, the likeness of an expanse, this is rakia, like the awesome gleam of crystal. That's Krystallos in Greek, the same word in Revelation 4 and 22. Spread out over their heads above. So it's above them. Let's look at the Jewish Bible again. Over the heads of the living creatures was what appeared to be a dome. That's rakia right here. Glittering like ice. There's a dome glittering like ice. It was awesome, spread out over their heads above them. Well, a dome glittering like ice. Sounds kind of like an ice dome, which might be the title of this video. Ice Dome Baby. All right, that's what I'm talking about. So this is Ezekiel's throne room vision, but it actually begins on earth. All right, so what does that mean? Okay, so the heavens were opened. Now that's a lot like Revelation 4, right? I saw visions of God. But notice this here. There it is right there, the earth. The word earth is used. Okay, so there are figures with the likeness of 4 living creatures, okay? And they describe them. Each had the face of a man. All 4 had the face of a lion, bull, an eagle. Now what these are the symbols used for some of the tribes of Israel, the 12 tribes, with 3 tribes in each group, right? These were basically armies or the host of God on earth. There's the host of heaven, which are the spiritual beings. And then there's the host of earth, which are us humans. This is talking about the 12 tribes of Israel as an army, being led by the Spirit in the wilderness, heading toward the promised land, being led by the Spirit, the angel of Yahweh. Exodus 14, then the angel of God who had been going before the camp of Israel. That's what it is. It's Ezekiel chapter 1 is a vision of the angel of God and the Spirit leading the camp of Israel, or the army of Israel. In fact, right after they cross the Jordan, they encounter the commander of the host of Yahweh, some kind of angelic being with a sword in his hand, okay? The sword of justice or judgment. The invisible spiritual reality has been revealed. All right, that's what Ezekiel 1's all about. In the book of 2 Kings, Elisha prayed and said, open his eyes, and Yahweh opened the eyes of the young man, and he saw, and behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. They couldn't see these things before, but now they see the underlying spiritual reality of what's going on here on earth. Why do the 4 living creatures have a wheel on earth? It's because they're leading the army. So in Ezekiel chapter 1, up to this point, he's really been seeing what's going on earth. And now from verse 22, he's going to look up. Now over the heads of the living creatures, all right? What's over their heads? These living creatures right here are actually on earth as he's looking at them. There was something like the likeness of a rakia. All right, that's rakia. Dome, the expanse, the firmament, if you like the King James Version, based on the Latin Vulgate, like the awesome gleam of, watch what happens when I click on the footnote, or ice. There's the ice dome baby. Oh, let's go back to the Jewish Bible. Over the heads of the living creatures was what appeared to be a dome, glittering like ice. An ice dome, and it was awesome. Spread out over their heads above them. Now the word rakia is based on a verb that means spread out. It's the spreading out of the sky. Now this word ice, translated as crystal in most English Bibles, translated as ice in the Jewish Bible, frozen water, ice, and some other cold stuff like frost, hail, etc. Water in a solid cold form. Look at that. Either falling from the sky, the shamayim, or sitting on the ground in a mass, in fine particles or masses, kind of like manna. I believe the mystery has been solved. Vanilla ice was onto something. So this word does mean ice. So the Latin Vulgate uses this word crystalli, and let's look at the Latin dictionary. Crystallum, the endings change because of the grammar, and that's based on the Greek word Krystallos, which is the word we've been looking at, and it means ice. And it's used that way in ancient Latin literature and ancient Greek literature outside of the Bible. Now, in certain contexts, it could be talking about what we know as the rock crystal, or what we simply call crystal in English. So we saw in the Hebrew, most of the time it means ice, same in the Greek or in the Latin. So what's the difference between ice and crystal? The word crystal derives from the ancient Greek word Krystallos, which is what we've been talking about this whole time in this video, meaning both ice and rock crystal. It means both things. So how do we know what's the difference? Well, context, okay? From krios, icy cold frost. Example of large crystals include snowflakes, diamonds, and table salt. Despite the name, lead crystal, crystal glass, and related products are not crystals, but rather types of glass. Not all solids are crystals. For example, when liquid water starts freezing, the phase change begins with small ice crystals that grow until they fuse, forming a polycrystalline structure. In the final block of ice, each of these small crystals, called crystallites or grains, is a true crystal with a periodic arrangement of atoms, but the whole polycrystal does not have a periodic arrangement of atoms because the periodic pattern is broken at the grain boundaries. So on the one hand, they say frozen water is a true crystal, but it's a polycrystalline structure or a crystallite. And it's possible that this Greek word, krystallos, is talking about crystallite, and that those Hebrew, Greek, and Latin words actually do mean ice and are translated as ice most of the time. It would appear that crystal in the Bible means ice because the waters above are the ceiling of the rakia. The water has been spread out, and the ceiling of the sky is made of water, frozen water. And domes are considered to be the strongest structure in the world and have been used for thousands and thousands of years. And especially they are used in religion because a temple is where heaven and earth collide. And the entire world was created to be a temple where God would dwell with his people. Okay, so you see these domes everywhere, which are actually a microcosm of the macrocosmos. If there's waters above the firmament, and it is also solid, and we see in Ezekiel 1 and Revelation 4, it is the sea of glass below the throne of God. Here's the throne of God is up here. When God looks down, he sees the sea of glass like ice. And then Ezekiel looked up and saw a rakia of glass or ice. It would seem to me that this so-called firmament is made of water because Genesis 1, all God did was separate the waters above from the water below. He didn't build any kind of barrier. But if the water is frozen here, then that becomes the barrier. So there's waters above, but it's frozen water. There's waters below, there's a rakia, and then there's waters above. The image right here, if this is something different than this, then you got two things between the waters. There's only one thing between the waters, and that's the rakia. This is the rakia, this is the sky. Remember, God called the rakia shamayim, all right? The rakia is sky, and there's the earth, all right? So when you look up at the sky, we could be looking up at ice. They're on top of Mount Sinai, and they saw the God of Israel, and under his feet there appeared to be a pavement of sapphire, otherwise known as ice, as clear as the sky itself. There's the sky, which is shamayim, under his feet, okay? So under the feet of God, there was a pavement of sapphire. So these guys here on top of Mount Sinai are basically having a heavenly throne vision, just like Ezekiel and John. So it appeared to be a pavement of sapphire, which would be a way to describe a lake of ice. All right, Job 6:16, which grow dark because of ice. This is the word, ice. The same Hebrew word we saw before is translated as ice right here, Krystallos in Greek, which, remember, is the same word used in Revelation 4. Now, it gets interesting here in Job 37. And from the breath of God, ice is made, and the rohav. The rohav is actually related to rakia, means the width or the breadth or the expanse. The expanse of the waters is frozen. Okay, wow. So we'll come back to this in a minute. Can you with him spread out the skies? There's the verb form of rakia right here. Can you rakia the skies, strong as a molten mirror? So if the water was separated, the waters above separated from the waters below, or spread out, expanded to create the living space for the people and the animals and the birds and the lights in the sky. And on top, it's made of ice, like a molten mirror. Ice, ice, baby. Verbal form of stereoma, same thing. This is where we get the word stereo, by the way, because the soundscape is spread out. It's a wide, expansive soundscape as opposed to one mono speaker. So if we go back here to verse 10, from the breath of God, ice is made, and the expanse of the waters is frozen. And if the waters above are frozen, there's ice, expanse, waters, frozen. All right here in this verse, and if you just scroll down, and then we got, can you with him spread out the skies, strong as a molten mirror. So those two passages very close to each other in the same context, talking about cosmology. We do have ice being associated with the sky. And it says here, from the breath of God, ice is made. From the breath of God, ice is made, and the expanse of the waters is frozen. This could be talking about the ice dome right here, the expanse, the rakav. All right, it's a related word to rakia. So it's almost saying the rakia, or the firmament, is frozen. The firmament is frozen. That's kind of what they're saying here. It's what it looks like to me. The waters above. These are the waters above. The firmament is frozen. All right. Now, I don't like to use the word firmament, but I will make an exception because we have a catchphrase. We have an ice dome because the firmament is frozen. Spread out the skies, strong as a molten mirror. Why? Because the firmament is frozen. From whose womb has come the ice and the frost of heaven. Why does heaven have frost? Who has given it birth? All right. The frost of heaven gave birth to the ice of the firmament. Krystallos. That's the word crystal. The Greek word we saw in the New Testament twice is in the Septuagint 9 times, and it means ice. Water becomes hard like stone because it's an ice dome in the waters above. The waters above becomes hard like stone, and the surface of the deep is interlocked. Above, below. You see this a lot in the Bible, in the Hebrew Bible especially. They talk about opposite things. They're comparing, they're contrasting, all right? Water above, the abyss below. The water above becomes hard like stone. We call that ice. Water becomes hard like stone, hard like a molten mirror, hard like ice. Ice is pretty hard. You know, I grew up in a very cold environment. We used to drive our trucks on frozen lakes. Ice is very strong. So if the top of the sky is cold all the time, then the ice is solid and strong. Now, once in a while, you get strange events where ice just kind of falls out of the sky from nowhere, right? Well, problem solved. We have explained that phenomenon by looking at the word ice, ice, baby, in the Bible. Who casts forth his ice as fragments? Who can stand before his cold? Well, it sounds like it's kind of cold up there in heaven now. Going to need a jacket. And it's our word krystallon. Again, Psalm 148. And the waters that are above the heavens. I'm just reading what it says. We may not understand this, but it sounds like there's a bit of ice up there. Now back to Revelation 4, the throne in heaven. Before the throne, there was something like a sea of glass like crystal. And the word there is krystallo, which means ice. And here we have hail and fire. Now hail, again, we have this ice connection. And the sanctuary of God, which is in heaven, was opened. The temple, the heavenly temple, the throne. And here we have another great hailstorm. Revelation 15, then I saw something like a sea of glass. Very similar to what we saw in Revelation 4, 6, sea of glass. And those who have overcome the beast and his image and the number of his name, standing on the sea of glass. Now here in 1 Kings 7, he made a sea of cast metal. So that's like a big bird feeder kind of thing, right? And then they put water in it. Circular in form, 5 cubits high, so that's about 7.5 feet, 30 cubits in circumference. So it's a circle representing the sky, because the tabernacle and the temple were like a copy of heaven. They built a copy of it here on earth for the host of earth. Look at the word circle, right? Encircling to represent this sea of glass, which would be the floor of the heavenly throne. In Revelation 16, we see huge hailstones again, or hail coming down from heaven. So hail is coming down from heaven because heaven is an ice dome, plagues of hail, because the ice from the dome is falling on people at the end of the age. Who cast forth his ice as fragments? Hail. That's a hailstorm. And we see this word krystallon, which means ice. We see this in Josephus as well, twice. Notice it says here, he also placed a crystalline, which is basically what the Greek word is, but then in brackets they put firmament because the translator thought we'd understand it better if he put that there. So he's talking about the rakia. Let's read what Josephus says. After this, on the second day, he placed the heaven over the whole world and separated it from the other parts, and he determined it should stand by itself. He also placed the krystallon around it, possibly ice, the rakia, and put it together in a manner agreeable to the earth, and fitted it for giving moisture and rain, and for affording the advantage of dews. Sounds like the establishment of a terrarium. That's basically what this is, all right? We live in a giant terrarium created by God. So Philo says, all these we perceive, but heaven has sent to us no sure indication of its nature, but keeps it beyond our comprehension. So he's saying the heavens are beyond our comprehension. For what can we say? That it is a fixed mass of crystal, and the word here is krystallos in Greek, which I'm saying it means ice. Not just me, but the dictionaries say that as well, and many English Bibles translate this word as ice. All right? It is a fixed mass of ice. He says there's 2 hemispheres of the sky. The hemisphere above, and there's a hemisphere below the earth. Hemisphere above the earth, and a hemisphere below the earth. So this whole thing could be a sphere, and we're in the middle of it. We live in Middle Earth. Does the moon contribute a light of its own, or a borrowed light caused by the rays of the sun shining on it? Philo is asking these questions in the 1st century A.D. One may confidently take one's oath that the day will never come when any mortal shall be competent to arrive at a clear solution of any of these problems. This is why the 4th and waterless well was named Oath, being the endless and altogether baffling quest of the 4th cosmic region, heaven. So he's basically saying no one will ever figure this out. And he said this in about 2,000 years ago. We're trying to figure this stuff out. People get all upset and emotional. This is not easy stuff to try to figure out. The original languages indicate this means ice. All right, I'm not just going by this translation. I've looked into these words in Hebrew and Greek, and I do believe this means ice, and so do the translators of the Hebrew Bible from the Complete Jewish Bible. There may be others, but I came across this idea before I even looked at what the Complete Jewish Bible had to say about it. I'm just showing you for the purpose of this video that I'm not the only guy who thinks this. Over the heads of the living creatures was what appeared to be a dome glittering like ice. If it's glittering like ice, it's also glittering like sapphire and crystal in a sea of glass. So we have crystal, sapphire, glass, ice. It's all describing ice. And if there are waters above us, and it's firm like a molten mirror, what else could it be but ice? If it's solid water, it is ice. That's what solid water is. Krystallos, clear ice, ice. Glacies in Latin. This is where we get the word glacier from this Greek word. Crystal, rock, crystal in certain contexts because it kind of looks like ice anyway. Now here, a very hard, translucent, and usually transparent type of quartz crystal. Okay. Well, that's possible. Maybe that's what it is. But some scholars, however, interpret Κρύσταλλος in Revelation 4:6 as being a reference to ice. That's what I'm saying here. Ice, ice baby, to be precise. Now here, the street of the city was made of pure gold, as transparent as crystal. Revelation 21:21. Some scholars, however, interpret valos in Revelation 20:21 as glass. Well, let's take a look. This is the New Jerusalem, and the street of the city, pure gold, like transparent glass. Well, if it's made of gold, then maybe it's not ice. But again, we have this transparent glass imagery, right? The street. This would be just like heaven. Basically, heaven's coming to earth, right? So the heavenly temple, the heavenly Jerusalem comes down to earth. God dwells with his people. The Lord God and the Lamb are the sanctuary. The glory of God comes to earth to dwell with people. So the floor of the heavenly temple was a sea of ice, a sea of glass. We also have the sea of glass, but it's called pure gold here. So maybe this is some kind of golden ice, or it's not ice anymore. The ice broke down and the hail came down from the so-called firmament of ice, from the ice dome breaking up, hail and ice falling down on people, causing tsunamis and devastating destruction, stones of ice falling down, destroying the world in judgment. And so the floor of the New Jerusalem may not be ice anymore, but it's still very, very similar, transparent glass. I'm going to add this verse to the list. This wasn't even in my list originally. Κρύσταλλος, crystal, translucent quartz, ice. And again, here's the Hebrew word karach, frozen water, ice, frost, hail, water in a solid, cold form. All right, it's the ice dome. Sometimes the ice will fall from the sky. It's the floor of God's throne, and it's our ceiling. That's my hypothesis, possibly even a theory at this point. There's a lot of textual evidence to make this connection with the ceiling of this world being an ice barrier. All right, it's an ice dome. The firmament is frozen because it's waters above, sky, waters below. That's what Genesis 1 says. The rakia is the sky. The underworld is a place of the dead. The earth is dry land. The sun, moon, stars, and birds fly in the rakia of the sky, and there's waters above us and the heavenly temple above that. And the waters above us are frozen, solid like a molten mirror. It's a sea of glass, a sea of ice, and above that is the heavenly realm. Sometimes this spiritual reality right here on earth has been revealed to some of the prophets, and looking up, they see the ice dome. They also have a vision of heaven, and they're looking down on the sea of glass. So the biblical model of cosmology contains the entire universe right here. Does the heliocentric model have a model of the entire universe? I don't think so. This is a model of the entire cosmos, but the heliocentric model does not have a model of the entire cosmos. So let us end where we started, and let's look at the Net Bible, Revelation 4:6. And in front of the throne was something like a sea of glass, like crystal. Check out this footnote. I just came across this right now. This is real time. This will be my conclusion, all right? You think I'm crazy? You think I'm stupid? Well, check this out. Translator note, this could refer to rock crystal, but it is possible this refers to ice, an older meaning. Well, guess what? This is a very old piece of literature we're looking at right here, and they were writing about stuff they were reading about in even older literature. It is possible this refers to ice. That's what I'm saying. We're thinking outside the box, under the ice dome. Now, obviously, it could be some kind of extra super hard and super strong ice that's basically very similar to some kind of crystalline rock-like substance that we don't even really know about here on Earth. And I'm not really looking at the science. I'm not a physicist. I'm looking at what the Bible actually says and trying to figure out what it means in its own context. And it seems to be talking about ice more than anything, as far as I can tell. Remember that modern man does not want this to be ice. So all these scholars and translators have their bias, and it comes in through the translations. But look down here, it says, the older meaning, ice. It says it right there. Ice, ice, baby. Vanilla ice. Try to tell us. Homer and Herodotus. All kinds of references. Job 6:16. Wisdom of Solomon. Josephus. Testament of Levi. Sibylline oracles. And then it says, is to be preferred, ? See, they don't have the courage. They don't have the fortitude to talk about the ice dome. The older meaning is ice. It says it right here. This is the best dictionary, by the way. Yes, the old meaning of ice is to be preferred. Absolutely. When we're reading the Bible, I think I provided plenty of textual support for this idea. Lots of arguments, lots of evidence, textual evidence, that at the very least, this is what people believed. And it's a very possible and I would say probable interpretation, and it's very simple, Occam's razor type of solution to this problem. What is the sea of glass? Like ice, baby, ice.